members. We welcome you to our beautiful province and hope that the fairly warmer winter that we offer here, courtesy of the warm Mozambique current that you are on, will keep you feeling like you are in a summer or spring, wherever you come from. We want to welcome the National Speakers Forum decision to bring this gender summit here, especially starting on the day that is the beginning of the South African Women's Month, the month of August. But also importantly, a day that we know that in 1985, in the south of Durban, a human rights activist was killed by the apartheid forces. The day that we remember the passing on of Umama of Victoria Mxenge, who was brutally murdered on this day many years ago. Umama Mxenge wasn't just a wife to Griffith Mxenge, another human rights activist, but both of them were lawyers who were human rights activists and who continued to provide access to legal representation and counsel to those who were victimized by the unjust laws of our past. Mama Mxenge, as still remains to be affectionately known by many of us, stood not only for political rights for all, but also stood up for rights of all women and vulnerable groups at the time. I believe that if she was here today to welcome you, Judge President, were she alive here today, she would have marveled at our province having a Judge President that is yourself, at the same time that the Premier is Honorable Dube Ngube Usisnomsa, and myself as the President that is yourself. Province. At the same time, her delight would not have been only because women were tasked with the three arms simultaneously, but I believe her delight would have been because she was going to be able to ask us with confidence and call us to account on the questions of delivery on gender issues. She would have stood here with pride to ask those of us that are tasked with lawmaking oversight and public participation mechanism on the impact of the KwaZulu-Natal legislature instruments to achieve the constitutional mandate of lawmaking oversight and public participation. This would have been coupled on how the government service delivery has managed over the years, 30 years, the people of our province, and continue to endeavor to close the gender inequality gap while bringing down walls of discrimination, especially towards the LGBTQIA+, rural women, senior citizens, children, and young women of KwaZulu-Natal. Lastly, as a lawyer herself, understanding that this is the 100th year since acceptance of women as registered and practicing lawyers, she would have been interested in how far we have moved in ensuring provision of justice to victims of gender-based violence and femicide, hate crimes, regardless of them being dressed as cultural or religious fundamental beliefs. She would not have cared because she would have known that those were hate crimes and that was gender-based violence and femicide. So today, in welcoming all the delegates here, on behalf of the activist people-centered legislature of KwaZulu-Natal, we implore all of you delegates to reawaken Umama Mxenge and ask the questions she would have asked were she alive today. Were we not robbed of her life? Please, today, act as if you Umama Mxenge. Ask us so that she will never die in our memories. She will live on. And activists that are here today, be active in the sector that you have chosen, knowing that it's a road that you are walking now, with rights being recognized for you to be an activist, but it's a road that many activists tried to walk on and they lost their life because it was not a road that was popular at the time. In asking those questions, remember that Umama Mxenge was not just a citizen of Umlazi, but was a citizen of South Africa and stood for all those whose rights were trampled anywhere in the world. So our mindset must not be focused on where we come from or the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but we must be looking at holistically on how South Africa has fared 30 years later, but also on how the world has transversed on issues of gender equality 30 years after we have moved and adopted as a sector. Make us accountable and provide tangible way forward in areas that we may still be underachieving, and be able to provide us collaborations with your good selves in order to strengthen the legislative sector of South Africa, to bring us to be just and accountable in our endeavors to provide our own co-mandate. Do this so that we ensure that whenever there is an opportunity to rise, we as legislators, and especially as presiding officers in the sector, we bring others with us. For this work is not for us, but it is a work of the people. Like Mama uCharlotte Maxeke taught us. Ngalamazwi ngiyanamukela kwisifundazwe sethu, nifunde nijabule. Kodwa uma litholakala ithuba lokuhlebela eduze ukuze wazi kabanzi ngokwenziwa abanye ulisebenzise. The late former chairperson of the 4th KZN Legislature Quality of Life Standing Committee, Honorable Doris Kosana, taught me that gossip as a social activity that over time has been known to be there and existing amongst women, exists even beyond being a woman, but it exists across societies. And when used positively, it builds. We are imploring you to come closer, whether you're speaking to those delegates that are coming from international platforms like Lesotho, Mauritius, and other provinces. Speak to them so that we can be able, when they have gone, to live in KwaZulu-Natal that is able to benchmark itself from what is happening in the national and international discourse, but also to achieve that which we have set ourselves to achieve 30 years ago. Namukelekile KwaZulu-Natal, siyabonga ukuthi nikhethe ukuza kuthina nibe nesikhathi esihle.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Boyce. We will now proceed to receive a message of support from Honorable B.N. Stole-Moloi on behalf of the Premier of the province.
Ngibonge kumphathi wohlelo umhlonishwa ubaba uMasondo ongusihlalo we-National Council of Provinces yalapha ezweni lakithi eSouth Africa. Angibingelele ngenhlonipho ku secretary okhona phakathi kwethu weParliament lakithi lapha eSouth Africa, umnumzane uGeorge. Ngibingelele usomlomo kazwelonke weParliament lakithi umama uMaphisa Nqakula. Ngibingelele usekela somlomo ubaba umhlonishwa ubaba uLethise. Usihlalo sengibingelelile ubaba uMasondo. Ngibingelele usekela sihlalo umama uLucas umhlonishwa. Ngibingelele umhlonishwa usomlomo wethu walapha kwiphondo lakithi KwaZulu-Natal, utade wethu uNontembeko Boyce. Ngibingelele usekela somlomo walapha kwiprovince obaba uMthembu. Ngibingelele uJudge President wethu ekhona lapha phakathi kwethu, utade wethu uMiss T Poyo Dlwathi. Uyangikhumbuze ukuthi ke izono zami azipheli ngasangibophe. Bese ngiyasho ukuthi cha masumdala uboshelwa ngasekhaya. Angibingelele kusomlomo waseMauritius uMiss Boy. Ngibingelele uDeputy Speaker of Kingdom of Lesotho, Honorable T Musina. I also want to greet all the speakers from all the provinces of South Africa and their deputy speakers. I greet you all in this wonderful day. Members of the National Assembly and members of the provincial legislature that are part of this summit. I want also to greet all distinguished guests, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, National Planning Commission, civil society, senior officials of government from all departments and legislatures that are present today. Ngithanda ukunibingelela nonke ngithi i-protocol is observed so that I don't leave others out having not respected them in their respective responsibility they are assigned to. I think firstly, I'm standing here on behalf of my Premier, Honorable Dube Ngube. She would want to be here, unfortunately, of the circumstances that she is faced with, she could not. Ngiyasiza ukuthi-ke ukuhloniphe uma uthunyiwe wenze kanjalo ukuthi uqale uxolisele lokuthumleyo bese uqhubeka nenkulumo. NjengeKwaZulu Natal sizizwa sihlonipheke kakhulu kuba isishayamthetho sikazwelonke sinqume ukuba sizoba nale summit lapha kwelikaMthaniya. Sithi-ke siyabonga kakhulu ukwenza usenze inisenzile, siyasithobisa njenganesifundazwe sakwaZulu Natal ukuba nizoba nalezi insuku ezintathu lapho sizobe kudingidwa khona izindaba ezithinta ubulini banxazonke nezinto ezibhekene nabo. Sifisa-ke ukuthi-ke lolu suku luqaleka kahle ngesikhathi lapho kuqala inyanga yabantu besifazane sibiza ngokuthi Women's Month, ngunozala noma ezalwe imizabalazo yomama abasuka ngo-August 9 ka-1956 bamasha baya ePitoli bayothi ku-Strydom. U-Strydom asisuwaphatha amapasi ngoba kwakuyisona siga esasibabheke emehlweni leso babhekana naso, ngoba when we are women we must stand before the challenges and face it and deal with the challenge. So labo mama-ke sithi bangamaqhawe namaqhawe kazi asimelayo. Namhlanje khulunywa ukuthi khona oprima besifazane, khona osomlomo besifazane, kukhona ongqongqoshe besifazane, kukhona amakhosi esifazane, kukhona bonke imikhakha lapho kuthathwa khona izinqumo abesifazane besimele. Siyafisa ukuthi-ke njengoba siqala lolu suku, siqala lezi insuku ezintathu enyangeni ebalekile kangaka abantu besifazane, nathi njengeKwaZulu Natal sizonikezela uxhaso lokuthi sithi nathi sinani malunga onke akhona aze azokwenza lo msebenzi omkhulu kangaka. We are saying that we pay tribute to this inviolable contribution of these women that have shaped our great nation as we speak today. Their unwavering bravery, dedication, and unwavering commitment have indelible shaped our society and continue to be the driving force behind our progress. This summit serves as a moment of reflection, not only to acknowledge the extraordinary achievement of women, but also to recognize the pivotal legislative work accomplished over the years that has transformed the lives of our women across South Africa. Under the theme, Advance Gender Transformation for Representative, Responsive Planning, Budgeting and Mainstreaming of Gender Program in the Legislative Sector, let us come together with a shared vision to pave way for a more equitable and inclusive future for all. Together, we can forge a path that empowers women, dismantles barriers, and ensure that gender equality is at the core of our legislative practices. Let us embark on the journey inspired by the resilience and spirit of our remarkable women. Commit ourselves to a society that fosters true equality, dignity, and justice for every citizen. We are privileged to be part of this gathering of the South African legislative sector under the leadership of the Speakers Forum of South Africa, sitting to deliberate, amongst other, on the journey traveled in the struggle for gender equity and the attainment of gender parity in South Africa. Chairperson, this gender summit takes place in KwaZulu-Natal as we continue to battle with the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, which in spite of our effort continues to raise its ugly head in our province. Sifisa ukusho ukuthi simi lapha ezinsukwini ezimbili ezedlule kubulawe ikhansela lesifazane lapha kwaNongoma ngesihluku esimangalisayo ngenxa yokuba kunombango womasipala nokuphathisana komasipala. Kusibhlungu ke lokho siqale kabi inyanga yethu njengabantu besifazane kube osifazane abulawe ngendlela abulawe ngayo ukhansela wethu lapha endaweni yakwaNongoma. Sithi ke siyafisa ukuthi njengoba ihlala le summit ikubheke ukuthi sibangavikela kanjani abantu besifazane ngoba bazithola be vulnerable ezikhathini ezifana nale kunemibango bese bebona ngama soft target, and ke sikuthola kukubi ke thina njengabantu balapha kwaZulu-Natal ngoba kuqale kwaphuma umbiko uvezwa umuntu wesilisa ethi kuzofa abantu ngoba bafuna ukubuyisela lo mkhandlu ezandleni bekade ziwuphethe kwase kufo isifazane waba i-target. Sithi ke siyafisa ukuthi ke siyazwana nomndeni wakhe kodwa sithule phakathi kwalo mkhandlu ohlangene namhlanje kazwelonke ukuthi enye into esingafisa ukuthi ke kukhulunywe ngayo moving forward. According to the SAPS KwaZulu-Natal figures for the single quarter of April-June 2022, out of 201 murders recorded, 53% were female. 71% of the total assault on gender-based household cases were inflicted upon women and girls. 641 women and 32 men and boys were raped during the period. There were 124 sexual assault cases, 97% of which committed on women. Our province has consistently recorded the highest number of rapes, namely 1,462, which is 25% of the total of 5,877 across all provinces. The national trend is mirrored in our province that 64% of all rapes occurred in victims' houses, meaning women are most unsafe where they are meant to be safe. We refuse to surrender our province to criminals of any sort, and will do anything to reverse the scourge of gender-based violence. The state in all its manifestation, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary has a responsibility to protect and prosecute these criminals. However, a sustainable program required the central engagement of all committees. It is thus imperative to engage all sectors, including civil society, the judiciary, the private sector, communities, traditional healers, persons with disability, members of the LGBTQIA+2 community, persons older, persons survivors of the gender-based violence, and members of the media. The crime fighting imbizo are being held across the province, led by our Honorable Premier, in trying to engage our communities and also highlighting areas where we feel that the crimes are high in those particular districts. The province engaged in expansion of gender-based program through Lifeline. Through this program, social workers for Lifeline organization are based at 104 SAPS centers throughout our province. We have 8 Tutuzela centers, care centers, 14 crisis centers to assist victims with psycho-social support services, including information on application for protection order and admission in shelters. Siyafuna ukusho ukuthi lama program esihlangabezane na esiwenzayo siphinde sihlanganyele kanye noSantaco ophinde naye abe ingxenye lapho senza khona ukuqwashisa ukuthi o-driver nabanikazi bamatekisi benze isiqiniseko sokuthi bayasilekelela ukubheka nalapho abantu besuke bethuthwa khona, ngoba esinye isikhathi abanye abantu bakithi besifazane bahlukumezwa kuzona izinqola ezibathutha zibayise emsebenzini noma beya lapho besuke bedinga ukuya khona. To encounter gender-based violence one of the key factors we must address is the economic empowerment of women. A report by Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa at the African Development Bank says female entrepreneurship in Sub-Saharan Africa is 25.9% of the female adult population. This means 1 in 4 women start or manage a business, making it the highest for any continent and global. The empowerment deficit is harmful, not just to women well-being and advancement, but to human progress. Siyazi ukuthi mangabe ulekelela owesifazane usuku ulekelela isizwe noma ufundisa owesifazane usuku ufundisa isizwe. Ingakho ke ukuba ezomnotho uma zinganikezelwa kwabesifazane siyazi ukuthi isizwe sakithi siyophumelela ngoba akusho thina kusho izenzo zabesifazane bebamba ezomnotho bezisa phambili. Nalapha ke siyakholwa ukuthi mase sixoxa siyazo lezi ezithinta ezomnotho ukuthi ama-pillars esizowasebenzisa ukuqinisekisa ukuthi siba empower kanjani abantu besifazane kwezomnotho ukuze izwe lakithi libe ngcono. The province believe that these multiple interventions we can reach the goal of a new model citizen and model man that does not use their God-given strength to dominate women, but to open pathway and to create new opportunities. We want to see a new man that value the fact that they are born of women and sees in every woman one that needs to be respected and worshipped as the bringer of life on earth. Siyafuna ukuthi ke abesilisa basinikeze lo nhlonipho kwabesifazane benza isiqiniseko sokuthi bayabavikela kungabi lula nje ukuthi owesifazane ahlunyezwe phambi kwabanye abantu besilisa bangamvikeli bangamkhuzi futhi nalo wesilisa ohlukumezayo. Siyazi ukuthi akubona bonke abantu besilisa abahlukumezayo kodwa sibonga ukuthi ke njengane South Africa eholwa umbutho wesizwe siyakwazi ukuthi zonke lezi zinto sizibekele imithetho yokuthi kuvikeleke abantu besifazane kuvikeleke nabo abantu besilisa kubona uqobo abafisa ukuthi benze isihluku kwabesifazane. Siyakholwa ukuthi ke le nhlanganisela yanamhlanje ihlanganisela bonke abantu bonke imikhakha yokuphila ezenkolo izolekelela ukuba masihleli lapha sixoxa sizixoxe lezi indaba bese sibeka indlela eyaphambili ukuthi sizokwenza kanjani. Sengigcina ke ngiyafisa ukuthi ke ngisho lamazwi ukuthi siyabonga kakhulu siphinde sinifisele ukuthi njengeKwaZulu Natal ukuhlala kwenu eseshilo somlomo ningagcini ngokuhlala niyibone iKwaZulu Natal njengendawo yokuvakashelwa nizothuthukisa umnotho wakithi njengabantu abanezindawo eziningi lapho ningakwazi ukuthi nifike nifunde khona okukhulu ngeKwaZulu Natal ngaphandle ukuthi nje sesithume ngokuthi sizigebengu kodwa asizona izigebengu. We are so hospitality friendly and people who come to KwaZulu Natal would want them to come and see these valleys, these mountains, these wonderful oceans that we have and come and invest in our province. Sifisa ukuthi ke ngathi ngahamba kahle i-summit njengeKwaZulu Natal siyanisupporta siyanixhasa siyakhola futhi ukuthi nizobe niphile kuze kuphele usuku lokugcina lesithathu konke kube kuhle. We wish you all the best and also ask God to protect you and give you strength to continue doing the good work in all your respective responsibility. I thank you, Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stwale Moloi. I now request the Secretary to Parliament to present a brief profile of Justice Boyo Hlwathi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. It is my singular honor to briefly introduce our esteemed guest, who has, in between her busy program, agreed to accept and honor the invitation to make reflections on this important occasion. And that is none other than Justice Thoba Boyo Hlwathi, who was born and bred in a rural village of Engobo in the Eastern Cape province. Always. The Speaker of the Eastern Cape says always. I don't know what that means. She says always. Justice Poyo is a former teacher. She studied law and qualified as an attorney in 1997. She's the first woman judge president with a vision for women in the judicial system. Justice Poyo Hlwati is the former president of the KwaZulu-Natal Law Society and also a former co-chairperson of the Law Society of South Africa from 2009 to 2010. She is currently the secretary of the South African Women Lawyers Association. And ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the various legislatures, our international guests and president, and chairperson and speaker rather, Justice Poyo is also currently the judge president, as I've indicated, of KwaZulu-Natal Division of the High Court. It is my singular honor to invite you, Justice Poyo Hlwati, to take the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for that kind introduction. You didn't have to say I'm from the Eastern Cape. That is a bone of contention in some areas. So I am a citizen of KwaZulu-Natal. Program Director, the Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and your Deputy, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Umama Onosfiwe Mapisa Ngakola, and your Deputy, Honorable Speaker of the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature and your Deputy, Sis Nontembeko. We are just claiming about who's older. So it turns out I am older than her by 1 year, which is a very good thing. It's not often that I'm older than people. So I was out to see cases from today. On behalf of the Premier, Honorable Sithole Moloi, please allow me to say all protocol observed. But I have to acknowledge 2 other people who were part of the panel that interviewed me. Fortunately for them, I am here now, so there are no issues. Honorable Nyambi and Honorable Sylvia Lucas. It is an honor and privilege for me to be invited to share about supportive institutions and structures to gender equity and transformation in this gender summit organized by the legislative sector. This invite could not have come at a better time as we start commemorating the Women's Month. Also, Honorable Speaker, I'm sure you'll agree with me, this is probably one of the very few moments where we can speak with one voice without the fear of the very thorny issue of separation of powers. The legislature, in my view, is an engine room of government, because if there is no will to change, then the parliament can simply fold its arms and do nothing. However, where necessary, The courts do provide assistance to Parliament, but I can assure you, Madam Speaker, only when there is litigation before us. It is on this note that I wish to take you through our own history as women lawyers in this country and how Parliament even then came to our aid. This year marks the 100th anniversary of women being admitted to practice law within the Republic of South Africa. The Women's Legal Practitioners Act 7 of 1923 was finally enacted into law on 10 April 1923, permitting women to enter the legal profession as either attorneys or advocates. This was best captured in a headline of an article written by Advocate Ngcukayi Tobi for the Mail and Guardian in August 2018, which read, "Let the world know that women were once not persons in the eye of the law." This was the interpretation given to persons in the context of the Incorporated Law Societies Act 27 of 1883, thankfully now repealed, when the judges of what was known as the Appellate Division granted an order that refused Miss Madeleine Yuna Woki to be able to register her articles of clerkship. I will not tell you where she comes from. She had succeeded in the Cape Supreme Court, where Marsdorp JP found that there was no positive law in existence disqualifying women from being enrolled as attorneys. In the appellate court, the judges stated that where the law referred to persons being admitted as attorneys, it referred only to male persons. Even though Judge Innes expressed some regret in this, stating that the question was not whether Ms. Woki was likely, adequately, and satisfactory to discharge the duties of a legal practitioner, he found that the position was simply that she was not a person referred to in the Cape Charter of Justice of 1883. Ms. Woki's case confirmed the prior decision of the Transvaal Supreme Court, where the court also refused Ms. Sonia Schlesin, the former treasurer of the ANC Women's League, the right to register her articles of clerkship with the Law Society in the absence of special legislation that would permit women to be admitted to practice as attorneys. She was articled to Mr. Gandhi. The court there held that the word attorney had always referred to the people of that class who have always been capable of being attorneys, namely men. And admitting women as attorneys could also lead to them being admitted as advocates, a change which would mean an enormous difference in the practice of the courts in this country. And he clearly did not mean positive changes. Both judgments perfectly highlight this discriminatory tone of the courts at the time. Ms. Schleslin, her application was brought in 1909, and Ms. Woki's matter was decided in 1912. We salute women like Ms. Woki, who started campaigns which included petitions to Parliament to change the law and enable women to practice law. Following the enactment of the Women's Legal Practitioners Act, on 14 June 1923, Ms. Irene Antoinette Giffen became the first woman to be admitted as an advocate to the Transvaal Bar Council. On 24 September 1923, Ms. Constance Mary Connie Hall would become South Africa's first woman attorney. Still, the judgments, although successfully granting these women their respective applications, contained clear sexist undertones. 39 years later, in 1962, South Africa would have its first Black admitted woman advocate, Ms. Zainunisa Kisi Gul from District 6 in Cape Town. Ms. Desiree Finger was the first Black woman to be admitted as an attorney in South Africa. She's from Mthatha, Madam Speaker. She was admitted during 1967, some 44 years after Ms. Giffen. She served her articles under Mr. Godfrey Pitchin. It would be another 45 years after Ms. Giffen was admitted as the first woman advocate, before South Africa would have its first woman judge in 1969, when Justice Leonora van der Heever was appointed a judge in the Northern Cape Division. In 1979, she began to serve on the bench of the Cape Provincial Division. In 1991, she became the first woman judge to be appointed permanently to the Appellate Division of the South African Supreme Court in Bloemfontein, where she served until she retired. Justice Janet Traveso was appointed as a judge in 1994, becoming at that time only the second woman in South Africa to become a judge. She also became the first woman deputy judge president when she was appointed as the deputy judge president for the Western Cape Division in 2001. Following on the creation of the Constitutional Court in 1994, some 71 years after the admission of Ms. Giffen as an advocate in 1923, two women were appointed to the first Constitutional Court bench, Justices Yvonne Mugoro and Kate O'Regan. May we keep Justice Mugoro in our prayers as she's still recuperating from the accident she had earlier in the year. Justice Monica Leo became the first ever woman judge president in the country in 2010 when she was appointed as the judge president for the Northwest Division. Justice Mandisa Muriel Lindelwa Maya broke two firsts in South Africa. During May 2017, she would become the first woman president of the Supreme Court of Appeal. She has fortunately been succeeded by another woman, Justice Mahume Molemela, who resumed her office on the 1st of June, 2023. In September 2022, 99 years after the first woman was admitted as a legal practitioner, Justice Maya became our first woman Deputy Chief Justice. And in 2023, 100 years after Ms. Giffen was admitted as an advocate, the KwaZulu-Natal Division would have its first woman judge president. Internationally, in 1995, Ms. Navenethem Navi Pillay was elected by the United Nations General Assembly as a judge on the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, where she served for 8 years, including several years as president. Later in 2003, she was elected by the United Nations General Assembly as a judge on the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Certainly in South Africa, women have come a long way, Madam Speaker, in being appointed as well as achieving top positions within the judiciary and in society in general. As referred to by my sister, the Honorable Speaker of this province is indeed in capable hands because it is not only led by women, but by capable Black women of South Africa. The latest statistics that I could find in the profession in South Africa, 254 judges, and of them, 114 are women. There is still room for improvement, Honorable Nyambi and your team, especially in the leadership roles of the judiciary. There are 8 women in leadership positions, apart from TCJ, Maya, and President Molemela and myself. The following 5 women are deputy judge presidents. Justice Goliath for the Western Cape Division. She's currently acting as the judge president. Justice Pashwane for the Northern Cape Division. Justice Mpahlele for Mpumalanga Division, soon to be judge president with effect from 22 August 2023. Justice Simenye for the Limpopo Division, also acting as judge president. Justice Mbele for the Free State Division, and Justice Jaje for the Northwest Division. Judge Mia has acted as a judge president of the Land Claims Court since 2011. We hope that this will get some attention of the JSC. However, even though we have not reached the ultimate goal, the changes that have been made to transform the judiciary, although slow, are of great source of encouragement to continue and move forward And reflecting on what has been achieved so far, it is worth remembering what Gillian Michaels said. It's not about perfect, it's about effort. And when you implement that effort into your life every single day, that's where transformation happens. That's how change occurs. Keep going. Remember why you started. Closer at home, at the turn of 1994, the KwaZulu-Natal division was all male. There were already Black and Indian judges, but they certainly were in the minority. Today, in 2023, the ratio is different. 28 of the permanent judges, 59% of them are men, and 41% are women. A huge improvement from 1994, but there's still room for more growth. By race, the following emerges: 41, that is 12 are Black, 14, that is 4 are colored, 17 are Indian, and 28% are white. Our first woman judge in this province was appointed in 1996 in Justice Vivian Niles Duna, followed by now the Justice of the Constitutional Court, Justice Leona Theron, who was appointed at the age of 32 years old and was the first Black woman to be appointed. She tells the story, as I digress, Madam Speaker, that when she was pregnant, between her and Justice Maya, there was quite a big outcry because there was no provision for maternity leave in the judicial system. So things had to turn around. I don't know what they were expecting. I suppose they did not expect that young women in particular would become judges. It was always meant for older males. Even today, I have to add that I am the judge president for people to say, oh, okay. But it's fine. It doesn't matter. The title doesn't really matter, but the work that matters. It is generated from the legal profession, that is the attorneys and advocates that are acting as judges, that ultimately judges are pulled. And there, Honorable Speaker, the legislature has done some great work as one of the support structures of the judiciary. The enactment of the Legal Practice Act of 28 of 2014, which is a legislative framework for the transformation of the profession, has gone a long way. There are those acting judges and judges that are appointed out of the magistracy and academia, but this tends to be in the minority. Hence, the focus herein will be on attorneys and advocates. In the statistics published in the June edition of the Judiciary, the total number of attorneys was stated as 32,302. 14,156 are women. The total number of advocates, 9,348, and only 2,868 are women. This is certainly an improvement from the statistics as of January 2022, because out of 29,981 practicing attorneys, 12,714 were women. And in 2017, it was worse because only 27% of the advocates were women. Currently in KwaZulu-Natal, there are 1,982 practicing women advocates and only 195 are practicing. The International Bar Association, in a report released in 2022, of which South Africa was one of the focus countries, found that some of the main reasons that stunt the growth of women in the legal profession are bullying and sexual harassment. Can you believe it? Lawyers, judges get bullied and they get sexually harassed and we keep quiet. It just shows that before you become a judge or a legal practitioner, you are a woman and you undergo all that women also go through. Bullying and sexual harassment both impact on the mental health and overall well-being of an individual, which may result in women being afraid to speak up against those that bully and harass them. If women are being held back in their growth, then they may not wish to apply for position such as being a judge. Competent women judges can only be appointed from those that have been prepared to put their hand up. And if those that are skilled are holding themselves back out of fear, then there will be problems in the future in appointing competent and skilled women in judicial positions. The president of the International Bar Association in their letter in the above mentioned report stated as follows: achieving and maintaining a safe, supportive and healthy professional environment free from inappropriate behavior is an ongoing undertaking. Many structural factors contribute to the high prevalence of bullying and sexual harassment in our profession. We will not fix them overnight, yet if we work together, we can achieve positive, genuine change. I see this challenge as a jigsaw puzzle with many pieces. Honorable Speaker, the other problem that inhibits the growth of women in the profession is the skewed briefing patterns, because they inhibit the ability to grow and further better skills that are desperately needed for women to thrive in the legal profession. In some instances, skewed briefing patterns mean that a barrier is placed before women and they are unable to explore areas of the law that are of interest to them or that require a high level of skills development. They are thus kept out. Skewed briefing patterns have resulted in women being highly skilled in family matters, minor criminal cases, and motor vehicle insurance matters, whilst the male counterparts deal with competition and commercial law, maritime matters, and financial law. The reason for the skewed briefing patterns is the view that is taken of women in generally. The patronization that can be traced back to the struggle of those women who are considered the trailblazers, your Miss Schleslin and Miss Wookie, and also Miss Geffen, Miss Hall, Miss Gould, Miss Finger, Miss Griffiths Mklenge, and for the judiciary, Justice van der Heeven, Justice Traveso, Justice Mkhoro, Deputy Chief Justice Maya, and the sexist undertone that they encountered on being the first to be admitted to either the position of advocate, attorney, or judge. The sexist undertones of the judgments in those matters are still apparent even today. It was noted by Mr. or Advocate N. Singh SC, a previous deputy chair of the General Council of the Bar of South Africa in Durban, that what is required is a different mindset, not only on the part of the end consumer of legal services, but also on the part of all those who play a role in directing its course. Honorable Speaker, it is people like you, the Premier of this province and the Speaker, and the heads of the various institutions that will turn things around in this regard. When a matter is going into court, because you guys are often in court, more often than we like, and then things are said about us, and then people come back to us still, even though they have said other things. I'm digressing and I shouldn't. When a matter is going to court, or even during that consultation, you should ask, where is a woman legal practitioner? Where are they? They should join that team. So embarrassing to see 5 counsel representing one institution and it's all males. But I haven't seen that with the National Assembly. It has always been led by women, and that are senior counsel. Let's have confidence in us, and in that way, we will have confidence in other women. Former Justice Minister Bridget Bambandla founded the Aspirant Judges Training after she saw the disparity when appointing acting judges for the various divisions. She assisted to provide entry-level education and training to aspiring female judicial officers to enhance suitability for appointment. So there is always room to change wherever you have the will to do so. In some instances, women are still the sole homemakers, especially because of childbearing, and the need to care for the child or children will often remain the responsibility of women. The absence from their professional office during their maternity leave is merely one of the many adverse impacts on the careers of women, especially at the bar. Fortunately for the profession, various bar councils have taken the initiative of addressing issues like when women do fall pregnant, they have remission to bar fees, as well as partial remission of rental and for floor fees. And this help women, their presence in their chambers, even when they cannot bear any income. Another problem that has been encountered is the disparity in the quality of education at the various tertiary education centers. This disparity impacts on who will obtain articles of clerkship or pupillage or any other form of legal training, depending on the career chosen. You know, today, when you speak to your daughter or your grandchild, my daughter corrects me, Mama, it's not raining outside. Timna, what's happening? It's raining. Timna, phandle mntanam kuyanetha. That's what I know. And you got the message, it's raining. So sometimes even the way people talk makes a huge difference as to where will they get a place to do articles. Important skills like researching and the ability to analyze an issue in coming up with solutions, and whether these lead to going to court or settlement for the prospective clients or for the attorneys and the advocates, and that result in quick resolutions of the issues that come before us as judges. Rights require both legal and social protection mechanism to ensure their protection and continued use and enjoyment. There has been a change of attitudes, though, towards women who practice within the legal profession. But the question often is, has enough that brings about a shift in the perceptions and opinions of women within the legal profession? It is for this reason that it is important for us in the judiciary and elsewhere that we partner with women that are in the progressive organizations, such as the South African chapter of the Women Judges Association, which is also gathering in Cape Town this weekend to address issues that are facing this country, the pandemic that is facing the women of this country, which is gender-based violence and femicide. We often need to equip ourselves as to how we deal with these matters when they come to court, because us as women in the judiciary must bring a difference in how these matters are approached. We need to recommit to the values of our constitution and take to heart what the preamble emphasizes, that in acknowledging our past, we must be certain not to leave anyone behind as we strive for a united democratic state based on the values of human dignity, equality, freedom, non-racialism, and non-sexism. Fairly recently, the Constitutional Court held that in transforming society, there's a strong need to embrace our diversity. It is through embracing the diversity of individuals that each and everyone can be a catalyst of change and transform an organization from within. It is not just up to the so-called powers that should be the ones to take the initiative. However, we all know with change, there is always tension. Simply, this tension arises out of the need to change, but there's often a strong resistance to same, where there are many that want the traditional structures to remain. Not only do some wish for the traditional structure to remain, but they fear that through change and transformation, they will be left behind. The need to embrace both a willingness to change as well as the willingness to positive change through embracing the values that underpin the Bill of Rights, especially the values surrounding human dignity and equality. Encouragement can be found in the epilogue of the interim constitution, Although describing the constitution and the change and transformation that is catalyzed of it, describes that by embracing change and transformation, we are on a historic bridge between the past of a deeply divided society characterized by strife, conflict, untold suffering, and injustice, and a future founded on the recognition of human rights, democracy, and peaceful coexistence and development opportunities for all South Africans, irrespective of color, race, class, belief, or sex. The pursuit of national unity, the well-being of all South African citizens, and peace require reconciliation between the people of South Africa and the reconstruction of society. The famous American poet Maya Angelou captured the idea that no one should be left behind where change and transformation are embraced, as well as the mindset needed to change and encourage transformation as follows. There were people who went to sleep last night, poor and rich and white and black, but they will never wake up again. And those dead folks would give anything at all for just 5 minutes of this weather or 10 minutes of plowing. So you watch yourself about complaining. What you're supposed to do when you don't like a thing is change it. If you change it, change. If you can't change it, change the way you think about it. As I end, Honorable Speaker, I urge the legislative sector to always be mindful that as all these three arms of government, it is the one that we rely heavily for the changes that we see and that we ought to see in our country. Thank you so much for inviting me and listening to me.
Thank you very much, Justice. Now on the topic, taking stock of South African legislative sector efforts towards realizing gender transformation in the 6th term, I invite the Speaker of the National Assembly to come forward and address us.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ambi Masondo, Chairperson of the NCOP. Your deputy, Sylvia Lucas. Allow me to recognize the presence of the Deputy Speaker, Zinodi, and the two chairs of the National Assembly and the NCOP, Honorable Frolik and Honorable Nyambi. Allow me as well to recognize our hosts, the Speaker of the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature, Honorable Nontembe Boys, and thank you very much for hosting us. Allow me, honorable members, to acknowledge the presence of the Speaker of the Parliament of Mauritius and the Deputy Speaker of the Kingdom of the Parliament of the Kingdom of Lesotho, who are in our midst. I'm happy to have listened to Dutch President of KwaZulu-Natal, Ms. Poyo Dluati, because I was also part of the team which interviewed her. And I think Honorable Chair of the NCOP there and Honorable Lucas will agree that a hectic one. But here she's here now, and she is the Judge President. And it's always good that we affirm people when they deserve to be affirmed. Allow me also to recognize Dr. Mbava. Dr. Mbava is not just representing civil society. Dr. Mbava is representing the Chapter 9 institutions, and she is here in our midst. Chapter 9 institutions, remember, the legislatures, parliament itself, those are some of the institutions we interact with on a regular basis. So I'm happy that you are in our midst, Dr. Mbava. Members of parliament and members of the provincial legislatures, our Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Polile George, and our House Secretaries, Mr. Paso and Advocate Pindela, who are also here. Allow me to also recognize a very special person to me who is here, the former Member of Parliament and human rights activist, Ms. Prex Govender. I will later tell you why I'm saying this is a very special person. This is one of those members who were in Parliament in 1994 who participated in the drafting of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the People of South Africa. Esteemed speakers and guests to this summit, members of the media, fellow South Africans, we are indeed grateful to have finally succeeded to convene this summit for the legislative sector as a whole. This is because of the important role of the South African legislative sector in advancing gender transformation in our country, especially when it has to do with accountability and oversight. I emphasize oversight because as far as legislation and policy making is concerned, South Africa, through the legislative sector, of course, has made significant strides in establishing a firm policy and legislative base to ensure gender equality and women's empowerment. In a society striving for equality and justice, it is crucial that the legislative sector plays a central and leading role in championing the rights and uplifting the status of women. The legislative sector must position itself